Hey, good afternoon on this glorious Thursday in Boston. This week we read a double portion. And the second portion we read is the portion of Balak, which is the king of Moab, who calls Bilam, the prophet of the Gentiles, says, I want you to curse the Jewish people. And Bilam gleefully comes to curse the Jewish people. But unfortunately, he can't curse them. God doesn't let him. And instead, he blesses them. And one of the most famous blessings that Bilam gives is the blessing that we say every single morning in our prayers. Ma tovo alecha Yaakov mishkanesecha Yisrael. How great are your tents, Israel, your dwelling place, your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. And Rashi gives the commentary, which I remember I told you years ago how I remember when I spent a summer in Germany going around on the Chabad Peace Corps, and I was in the city of Heidelberg on Shabbat, and I said this commentary that Rashi says, which is that Bilam couldn't curse the Jews, so he found a blessing. And what was the blessing? The blessing was thanking and praising the Jewish people that their tents didn't face one to the other. They gave each other privacy. They were happy one for another. But the Ben Ish Chai, the famous commentary on the Torah, says something a little deeper. And the Ben Ish Chai says that the building on what the commentaries tell us, why does he say, how great are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel? Building on that, the commentaries say that Ohalecha and Mishkanesecha speak about the shuls of the Jewish people and the yeshivas, the places where we learn, the Batei Midrashot. The Ben Ish Chai says like this, and listen to this carefully. He says the word Ohel emphasizes something temporary. And Mishkanotecha speaks about your dwelling place as something more permanent. And what the Ben Ish Chai says is that we're speaking about when a person does a mitzvah that's temporary. You wrap tefillin once, you light Shabbos candles, you go to shul once, and sometimes you might feel, what's the big deal? I did it once. But the truth is that what Bilam was praising was that every single mitzvah we do, even when we do it temporarily, is such a powerful mitzvah. You see, when it comes to a culture, just because you made Indian food once doesn't make you Indian, or just because you use curry doesn't make you part of that history, that culture. But when you do a mitzvah, the mitzvah that you do is everlasting and irrelevant if you continue doing it or not. That mitzvah is so powerful. And that's what Bilam was saying, Ma tovu alecha Yaakov. How praiseworthy is even your tents, even your temporary dwellings, even the mitzvahs that you might do which don't last and might not stay forever. You might not do it every day, yet it's enduring and it's everlasting. But the Ben Ish Chai takes it even a little further. If you see the word Ma tovo alecha Yaakov, when it comes to the tents, he uses the word Yaakov. And when it comes to the Mishkanotecha, the permanent dwelling places, he uses the word Yisrael. And if you remember, the word Yaakov comes from Akveni. He fooled me twice. When Esau comes and he cries to his father Isaac that Jacob stole the blessings, he says he fooled me twice. And the Ben Ish Chai says sometimes we do mitzvot and we think we're like a hypocrite. We're fooling someone because that's not really who I am. I'm doing the mitzvah today, but I'm not going to do it tomorrow. Says the Ben Ish Chai that Bilam recognizes and praises even those mitzvahs that we do only temporarily. Don't be fooled. Don't say, I'm fooling someone, because as the Alter Rebbe tells us in Tanya, every mitzvah is so precious, is so valuable. It connects us to Hashem, each mitzvah individually. As he quotes from Maimonides, that a person has to always see the world as though it's equally balanced. And your one mitzvah could tip it to the scale. So Bilam is praising the Jewish people and he's saying, Ma tovu alecha Yaakov. How worthy are your temporary mitzvot that you might feel you're fooling me? No. It's the same equal as Mishkanotecha Yisrael, as those mitzvot that we do that are more permanent. And it's a message to all of us, because let's not kid ourselves. There's some things that we say, I go to shul once a month. I wrap tefillin twice a year. I light Shabbos candles, but not every week. Am I being hypocritical? Am I fooling someone? Says the Ben Ish Chai that that's the message that Bilam is sending us. There's an old story that I love very much with the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, that one time a Chassid, who was a big businessman, he would go to the city of Leipzig to do business. But when he came into the Rebbe, he always wore his kapata, his Chassidic garb. But when he went to business, he got dressed like a businessman. One time the guy says, hey, he turns to the Rebbe. He turns to himself, he says, what am I, fooling the Rebbe? I'm going to come the same way I'm dressed when I go on business. Why am I changing my garb? So that's what happened. And that time he came into Yechidus, he came into his audience with the Rebbe. And the Rebbe looked at him and said, what happened? Where's your Chassidic garb? And he said, listen, Rebbe, I wanted to be honest with you. I didn't want to fool you. I wanted you to know how I am, how I dress in Leipzig. This is who I am. And the Rebbe looked at him, the Rebbe Rashab, and said, till now I thought that when you went to Leipzig, you were fooling them. This was your authentic you. Now I see that that's your authentic you, and you were fooling me. What was the message? The message was, that listen, don't laugh, don't be fooled by that moment when you do a mitzvah, by that time you light Shabbos candle, by that time you eat kosher, by that time you go to a class, because truly, that's who you are. And even if it's temporarily, it's not, because it lasts forever. And that will stay with you, and that will be who you are. So my friends, every mitzvah counts, cherish it, and remember the praise as the Ben Ish Chai tells us, that Bilam gives us, because that's why he couldn't curse the Jews. That's the specialty of the Jewish people, that every mitzvah counts, every mitzvah connects us to God, and every mitzvah is unique and great and special. Have a great day.